Hi there. Hope you're doing well today. Um, so, I made the Satisfactory Jetpack. In this video, I'm going to go through how to set things up for the jetpack, how the model works, how to put it together, everything that you need to know to actually get started working on the jetpack. To me, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I made the model, so I'm a little biased. I just wanted to go through and show how to connect all the pieces, put it together. I'm not going to do anything like wiring it up or showing how to put the LEDs in. It's a pretty tedious process, and I already finished it, so I can't really show you too easily how I did it, but I can kind of walk you through little bits of it. So, without further ado, let's get right in. I also just want to say, if you haven't yet, make sure to go down in the description. I'm going to have linked the things page of where you can buy the jetpack model, not the entire jetpack itself, but where you can buy the model to download and print for yourself. So the entire jetpack itself is comprised of about 64 different pieces altogether. There really isn't too much that's really complex about the model. It's just basically the main body pieces, and then there's this bottom wing piece that kind of holds both of the thrusters that are attached to the bottom. There's this, which I figured was some sort of a vent piece, so I just labeled it vent and vent blades, which there are about 12 of, I believe. And then there are smaller key detail pieces like the handles on the sides. There's the back panel pieces that slot into place, and they should all connect. And then there are what I also assumed as fuel canisters on either side that I spray printed red to kind of indicate fuel, and then copper piping lines, which there are technically supposed to be 4 of in the original screenshot from the game, but I really didn't want to add 4 because I felt it would be too complicated for my skill set. So starting off with the piece you're going to have to print most of is the thruster piece. The thruster, you're going to need 3 of them, 1 for the center of the jetpack and then 2 for the bottom wing portion. The jetpack is comprised of 5 or 6 pieces. This top cover piece, the bottom thruster head, the actual base of the thruster, what I call the thruster connection puck, which actually sits on the jetpack model itself, and then in here there is a joint connector, and then a piece that you don't actually see is, oh, that's weird, is the screw that will slot into place there and will combine both of these pieces together, so that if you needed to access this head portion for reconfiguring LEDs or doing something of that sort, you're able to just unscrew it and then work on whatever you need to. Putting it together is simple. It's basically just as simple as printing out all the pieces and then taking the screw and threading it into place and then putting this on. I recommend you spray paint both of the pieces separately. The head is meant to be more of a silvery kind of chrome type, and then the base thruster is more of a darker color. That is if you're going with standard Satisfactory colors. If you're going to do something other than that, by all means, make it whatever colors you feel. The only really one of the hardest parts of this jetpack is putting this top thruster cover on. I didn't make any indentation on how to put it on or where it would sit on it, but it basically just hovers ever so slightly on all the sides. It doesn't really touch any of the thruster other than right at this back ring here. And on my thrusters, I just dumped hot glue in there and then used a plastic welder and merged it all together so it wouldn't move. So now it's on to the actual base part of the jetpack itself. I recommend you print out all the pieces before trying to assemble it bit by bit. It just makes it easier if you are going to wire up LEDs to do it that way. If not, if you're not going to wire in LEDs, I still would recommend that you probably wait until you have all of the pieces of the jetpack printed out, just so that you don't mismatch pieces and that there aren't overlaps of any sort. Especially with pieces like this, the triangle top mesh is what I named it. in the files. It is 2 pieces split together so that it'll fit easier on the printer, and then it has a hole cut out in the center, which you might need to adjust ever so slightly. That's meant for the connection puck. So these pieces have holes through the center so that you can wire them up easier, and then they are able to just slide into place. Same with this bottom piece here. This bottom piece has slight indentations on either side that when you push it down all the way, it will kind of just slide into place and it won't move as much. And I would recommend very much so to hot glue or any sort of permanent solution that you're going to use for this to slide it into place, but before you do, to just cover it in glue so that it can't move as much. But these pieces can all be combined, and then moving on down, this final piece connects to the what I deem as like the very, very top of the jetpack, where most of everything else lies, and this piece here is the wing connector. So the wing is printed in 2 parts, and either side has a connector for the pucks for each of the thrusters that you just kind of slot into place, and then there are divots on the back where you will wire up wires if you are doing LEDs again, and then each of these components has a hole so that you can get to the back of it, where I've stored all of my electronics basically in this compartment here, and it's almost the right size for a single 18650 battery, which is what I'm running my ESP32 off of, and that's just running WLED for all of the thruster LEDs. Down here, the vent itself will kind of just press on top of that, and the bottom should be lined up with it. It'll press on top of that, and basically this entire wing bit will be locked in place. So as long as you hot glue these main middle sections together and very much so carefully put all of these pieces together, it should be very, very sturdy. So moving on to the back portion now, there are 3 main back pieces, and then there are small detail pieces on the sides. Each of these have indentations where they can be slotted together, and then they can be pushed down in keyhole portions. Same with there. And this entire top bit is a part by itself, so you will have to masking tape this silver section of the side brackets. This piece here has registry holes where you can push it into place, and then this piece will go right on top of that and in between here as well. I recommend you put in this very bottom piece first, and then this top piece, and then the middle piece, just to make sure everything fits properly, and so that things, slot into place. But by itself, this top bit has these registry holes as well, and same with each of these pieces. I don't know if I'm going to include the holes in the model that I'm going to provide on the things page. I've not quite posted it yet, but I had some issues with putting things together, and I had to rip off a couple of the pegs because I didn't want to reprint a bunch of stuff. So things like these pegs I had to rip off, and I just hot glued the joints together to make sure, and then I used a plastic welder to make sure they don't go anywhere. But other than that, it's pretty painless. If you print it correctly, if these, I would check in the model, I should remove them, but if these pieces are still there, I'd recommend printing it on this top side here, where these pieces on the top are right on the bed, and then supports will come up and grab these bits. Or I would recommend printing it from the back, because most of the time the support interface distance will cause some sort of artifacting, warping of some sort. Mine did especially, so I did mine on the back because I figured that part's going to be against my back, so it doesn't really matter if anyone sees it or not. And then the handles on either side, there is a small attachment that connects to this piece here, and then there's the physical handle itself that will just slot into, oh, what's the other one? Well, it'll just slot into that piece, and you should just be able to hot glue those into place. I spray painted mine silver, just, I don't know, just for like an aluminum type feel. There's not many electronics that are needed on the top bit, just the single thruster. There's really it's only the thrusters that are the electronic bits. But that's the main body of the jetpack. If you can see here, each of these pieces will go together. Oh, that's the wrong button. So each of these pieces have the keyholes, the registry. You just push them into place, and it should make a click, hopefully. I'm going to keep most of them, hopefully, just to make sure that everything will lock into place correctly, because it is very integral to the structural integrity of this piece. But I connected all my pieces basically like so. The main body of it was connected like this, and then I added the top piece here that goes along the top and glued all that together, and then I basically glued most of the back pieces together just to make it easier to, if I do need to disassemble it, I can take each of the main portions off, and it makes it easier to transport or to store for later. And I do think that's the main bits of the jetpack and how to put it together. So now I'm going to talk a little more about how to wire up some of the LEDs and some of the systems that I used for it. Actually, before I do that, I just wanted to say really quick, the fuel canisters on either side of it. The fuel canisters have a top and a bottom piece that should just push straight into place. And I would recommend, very much so, you really should, have a left and a right piece. They're not the same piece. So this right and left piece are basically identical, but they're mirrored over an axis, and the connector is strange for it. So there are these pieces here. They're angled, so it'll have this arm that extends, and the back pieces, somewhere around here, well, the back triangle piece that goes over this has a spot where you can just push it straight into place. And then there is a cable that comes out of the bottom. You may have to, on the print itself, this came out weird when I tried to remove portions of it, so you might have to kind of rip out this section to push that in, and then I just hot glued that into place, and it actually provided a lot of structural integrity for it. Yeah, and here's the piece here. So these pieces have inserts as well, so all you have to do is just push them into place, and it should work properly. Same with down here, just hot glue them into place, and the entire canister system should work perfectly fine. So this is my jetpack. I can't show you too much of it as it is right now on camera. Hopefully in post we'll flash some images and videos of how it looks while it's being worn. Mine is currently charging though, because I have been wearing it for quite a while. And basically each of these thrusters have 22 LEDs each in them, I'm pretty sure, and they are run off of these 18650 batteries with a charge module connected, so they're running off of Type-C. And then each of these are connected to different pins on the ESP32, where I can configure the WLED app on my phone so that I can make them run animations if I wanted, or not. I think the battery's too dead for that. Oh, there we go. I think this one has issues with its ground pin, so I have to mess with some of the electronics underneath the cover, but it works still really well. And a lot of the times if you see that they are like one of them or two of them are brighter than a different one, make sure to double check all the connections on this thruster's pins. I used a bunch of the standard breadboard connectors and just kind of cut tips off of them and then hot glued them and soldered them together to make it easier for me, because I didn't want to run a bunch of custom wire all the way from this thruster up here, down here, bad. So I just connected them all the way up, hot glued them in. So the back of it does have a lot of wires running up it. But since it is pressed up against my back, it doesn't really matter because people aren't going to see that. They're just going to see the perfectly seamless top bit of it. And I can't show you much still because it is, of course, charging. But hopefully I'll flash some images and videos of what it looks like while I'm wearing it. And on the model itself, you may notice that there are kind of looped holes on the very top piece and the very bottom base piece of the Jetpack itself. These are not holes to put parts in that you print. I bought backpack straps off of Amazon that have 2 carabiner clips on either end, and those are meant to connect to it so you can actually wear it easier. I was just going to take an old backpack and rip it up, but this seemed like an easier option. And I'm going to link that also down in the description to show which ones I used, and I'll link all the stuff that I used as well. So the LEDs, the backpack straps, I'm going to link the ESP modules, just so that you have open resources. If you want to make it yourself, go right ahead. I'm going to be posting the model on Thangs for, I think, about $15, which I thought would be a solid investment for this awesome piece. I love it so much. This is really one of the first pieces that I've made myself. I entirely 3D modeled it from scratch, and I love it so much. Wiring up things like the LEDs, what you're going to want to do is the outside ring is going to have, I think it's 8 LEDs, and then it's 6 on the inside, and then 4 on the actual center puck. And then I had my LEDs, you can't really see it, but down in there, you can kind of see a green flashing one. That is the first LED, and then the wire goes around and goes straight through the center, and then down the backside of each of the wings, and then through here all the way up into the electronics stored underneath this thruster here. So mind how it looks. On the inside there, I sprayed the LEDs by accident with the spray paint when I was painting it, but I realized I did a horrible job of explaining what I was trying to talk about. But by outside, I mean this outside ring will have 8 LEDs, and then there's 6 on that inside bit there, and then there's the 4 here, and then the wires just are soldered right into place, and then it's a little bit of a mess to jam pack wires in there. Definitely use flexible multi-stranded. I only had solid core wire for these pieces on this side and for some of the other thrusters too, but definitely use the thinnest wire you can get. I had 24 AWG wire that I think worked really well, and is actually what those are right there, so they worked better. Yeah, this is a better look at how it wires up, and then these come out the back here and go down through the puck into that rail, and then kind of filter around. It's a little bit long cables, but honestly it's not too bad for the price point. Just buy a bunch of the breadboard cables. They're really cheap online. And if you don't have a breadboard to prototype it, I would highly recommend using a breadboard first rather than just directly soldering to the ESP32. It definitely helped me when I was putting it together, just to make sure all the different pins were working. And I would also, word of caution, make sure to get the correct ESP32 version. I was using an ESP Xiao board, which ESP-C3 only provides 2 pins for LEDs, so I had to get a new board because it only provided 2 of the thrusters. I couldn't wire in the third. Or if you really wanted, you could wire them all into one strip. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you wanted to, you can do that. And then WLED has built into it a way to segment each of the strips, which you're still going to have to do if you do the wiring method, where each of these are separate, but it's easy to do so. So you just mark that this one is LED 0 to 22, this is 0 to 22, this is, or no, sorry, this is 22 to 24, and this is 24 to 48. Hey, editor here, who is also me. I meant to say that the first thruster would be 0 to 22, the next thruster would be 23 to 44, and then the final thruster would be 45 to 66. But anyways, it's a wonderful model. I loved painting it and making it. I don't have too many videos or photos of in the process of making it while I sprayed it and stuff. I forgot to take photos, unfortunately. But it was really simple. One of the hardest parts is going to be the thruster casing bit, the top sheath piece, and then the other hard part is going to be these vent fans. I think I installed mine the wrong way. They're meant to be at a slight angle, but I just dumped hot glue along each of the seams and then they're pushed into place. So yeah. So that was the Jetpack from Satisfactory. Whether or not you actually bought the model and decided to make it for yourself, or if you just wanted to watch this video, thank you very much. Hope you come back soon, and happy pioneering!